Good to see you guys back. It's time for spring football already, huh? I just wanted to share, a couple things. As you guys know, we've done quite a bit at Rutgers, whatever we can get ourselves involved in to support Hurricane Sandy relief. And in the process, we've worked really close with Governor Christie's wife, who's been at the forefront of the NJ hurricane relief efforts. And between the T-shirts last year, the strong T-shirts, and the collections our student athletes did at games, and the cooperation we got with Scarlet Fever, Steve and his staff with the T-shirt sales, we've written a check for about $150,000 for the relief so far. And I say so far because obviously this is going to be an ongoing thing. Kyle's going to talk a little bit more about what we're going to do this spring, but honestly, when you have control of an operation like this and you have the resources we have, we're going to do everything we can to continue to volunteer and support and do all the things we can do to make sure people get their lives back to normal as much as possible. Our piece of it might be small and in the big scheme, but I saw the governor and his wife at the Big East tournament, and she made a point to mention how appreciative they were of our efforts. And I know that they're securing several million and multi-million-dollar donations to that fund too, but everybody in the state pitching in is really part of the reason that New Jersey is such a great place. So we're excited so far about what we've done. There's going to be a lot of things we're going to continue to do, and the efforts will be indefinite, and we just feel lucky to have the resources to be able to help people as much as possible as they get their lives back to normal. So you guys have any questions? Otherwise, I'll step off and bring Coach Flood up.
Tim, real quick, just some of the ideas as far as the special helmets and the jerseys and everything, where did those ideas come from?
I'm going to let Kyle talk about that, Brian, but honestly, those ideas came out of football. As you know, they have a really diverse staff of guys here, from the coaches to the administrative staff all the way down the line. What I love is that a lot of these guys are our guys. Look at guys like Darnell Stapleton and Gilk and some of these guys, and whatever you think they do every day, I can assure you they're spending a lot of time thinking about ways to help people. And Gilk especially was really affected coming from Union Beach by everything that went on. So these ideas came out of football, and we were really excited they did, because I think the ideas are terrific. So thanks, guys. Coach?
Good afternoon. It's great to be back. I'll put this in a spot, maybe it's a little bit more visible, not being too disruptive here. Let me just start by thanking Tim Pernetti, Jason Baum, and the rest of the athletic department for their cooperation. Really, the person who I think deserves most of the credit of the two people, would be Will Gilkison for sure, who grew up in an area directly affected by Hurricane Sandy, and certainly has a lot of friends and family who live down there in those areas, as well as Mike Kuzniak, who is our head equipment manager here, and they have worked quite a bit, and we've looked at a couple different versions and things we could do to hopefully create something that would generate fundraising value. And I think this helmet for the spring game, along with the jersey, which Jason has displayed on the side, where we will wear on the back, where we would normally wear our name, we're going to wear some of the towns that have been affected by this hurricane. I think it gives us an opportunity to not only have a great event for our spring game and a great showcase for our football program, but also have the opportunity to give back. And I think we're so fortunate to be able to compete, work, play at this level at a great university like Rutgers University, but now we also have an opportunity to give back to a lot of people in our home state here who certainly are still in need of help. So we're excited to do that. And as I said, Will Gilkison has really driven this process in our department here in football. And I know that this is a very personal charity for him, as it is for all of us here at the university. As I move on to spring practice, with our first spring practice coming up tomorrow, it was great to be back off spring break and see the players and have the opportunity to meet with them today and get ready to be back on the field with them for the first time, this year with this football team. And there's a lot of youth in the room, and that's exciting to me because I think we've got a lot of talented youth in the room. Let me just give you a little bit of an update on the health and the injury situation of the team. We have decided, when I say we, I mean myself, the medical staff, Brandon Coleman, and his family, to do a minor procedure on his knee. And we thought this was the best time to do that. So he will sit out this spring, so you will not see him out there on the field. David Maluski, coming off his ACL, has looked great in the offseason, but he's still not ready for contact drills. Matt McBride, coming off a shoulder procedure, will not be in contact drills this spring. Nadir Barnwell, who had a shoulder procedure after his state championship game, will be out there. There'll be certain things he can do, but he will not hit this spring. And Kenny Kirksey, coming off a foot issue, we're hoping to have him back week 3 of the spring. But to start, he'll be limited in what he can do. And other than that, I think the rest of the players will be out there and will be competing. And I think competition will be at the forefront this spring. We've got a lot of players at a lot of different positions, both starting positions and positions of depth, that are going to be competing for their role on the football team, competing on offense, competing on defense, and trying to find their place on special teams. We have a lot of spots on special teams that need to be replaced. If you just look at the players like Wayne Warren, players like Brandon Jones, players like Marcus Cooper, just to name 3, and there were many more than that. Guys that did a lot of things for us and played on 3 and 4 different special teams. We have some depth to build, not only on offense and defense, but on special teams. But it's going to be an exciting spring. It's a different football team. It's a younger football team, but it's a talented football team, and I'm excited to see them out there on the field tomorrow. And with that, I would open it for questions.
You guys can just raise your hand. Just wait for the mic. Bring it to you. Thanks.
Kyle, can you talk about the challenge, the different challenge that this team presents? It seemed you inherited a team that was almost built to win immediately last year because of, because of all the NBA and NFL guys that you had on it, and what the challenge is this year, and does it help that you've had a year experience to go through what you did?
Sure. Without getting too much into last spring, I did feel that one of the challenges last spring was having a defense that certainly was very established and trying to make them a little bit better, but also having an offense that had a lot to prove. And I think we made some strides on offense, but we didn't make all the strides that we wanted to, and we still have some distance to go on that. But returning so many players on offense is exciting. And I think having the opportunity to see these guys take the next step and at the same time develop some depth and see some of these red-shirted players, some of these young offensive linemen, some of these young receivers, the young running backs, get an opportunity now to see where they fit in. I think that'll be a little bit of the challenge on offense. And on defense, it's almost different at every level of the defense. We bring back quite a few defensive linemen, and it's going to be a lot of fun to watch those guys go out there and practice, and that'll be a great challenge, I think, for our offense to have to block them every day. I think that'll be the best practice we could get this spring. At the linebacker position, even though we lost 2 excellent players, we bring back 2 excellent players in Kevin Snyder and Jamal Morrell. And now fitting them in and trying to figure out who is going to be the 3rd, the 4th, and the 5th linebacker, that'll be a little bit of the challenge on the second level. And then in the secondary, we got to really see where all the pieces are going to fit. We've moved Jeremy Deering to safety. He'll line up as our starting safety, day one. And I think that's a position that he has looked very good at in the little time we've put him there. But now being there full time and seeing if he can really take hold of that spot, that's going to be one of the things I think we'll be watching this spring.
Kyle, any different challenges this year with the turnover in the league and new teams coming in and a couple departing? I mean, I know it's only spring practice, but I'm assuming this is a time where you might work on some things that you'll put in for the season. Any different challenge there, just being that you'll have a slew of new teams to face this year, more than you normally would with an out-of-conference schedule?
There will be some new challenges, but I don't know that doesn't happen even when the teams don't change, because you have coordinator changes within your own conference at times, even when there is stability. So, those will be things we'll look at as a staff more at the end of spring. Right now, for us during spring practice, this is a time to really find out what kind of team are we going to be. Who are going to be the players on offense and defense that are going to be our playmakers. That's what spring practice is going to allow us to find out. It's really going to allow us to find out more about ourselves than anybody else. And then after that, we'll get into the studying of our opponents and looking at the first third of the season a little more closely maybe than some of the other opponents during the season, because we'll be able to see up-to-date game film on them.
Kyle, I'm sure since the season ended, you may have gotten a question or two about quarterbacks. How are you handling that going into the spring, and what kind of things are you looking for?
This is going to be an exciting spring for the quarterbacks. I know that word exciting. I use that quite a bit, but but I am excited to see it. I think we've got a couple things happening in that position. We have a player in Gary Nova who returns as our starter with 13 games of experience under his belt, and that's the first time we've had a situation like that in a long time. So it's going to be interesting to see where he can take his game throughout the spring, and he's certainly been working on that in the offseason. But with that being said, we have a lot of very talented competitive players in that room. And Gary is our starter, but we have a guy in Chase Dodd who has started in 1 game here at Rutgers. We also have some players behind him that are going to get an opportunity for the first time in their career to play Rutgers football full time. A guy like Blake Rankin, a guy like Chris Laviano, a guy like Mike Bamonte. So there is going to be an excellent competition and competitiveness in that room. And I think that's going to make every player in the room better.
Offensively, how much of the playbook would you like to have installed by the end of spring camp?
I would like to think by the end of spring we'd have the entire playbook installed. I think with this group coming back and the system really not changing, the most important decisions that Coach Prince and the offensive staff are going to have to make are where are the playmakers? And we know Brandon Coleman is going to be one of the better, more elite playmakers in our conference and in the country. With him not being available in the spring, it's really going to give everybody else an opportunity to see where they fit. There certainly will be no lack of opportunities.
Can you talk about the defensive line? I see you have Merle back at the end, and what's the R position going to look like?
I think the most important thing for us as coaches is to never get so wrapped up in scheme that we don't get the best players out there. And to have the opportunity to put Marcus Thompson and Jamil Morrell on the field at the same time at those 2 defensive end spots, that's really what drove that decision. And then to keep Darius Hamilton on the field, and then Isaac Holmes, Kenny Kirksey, that competition really, because we'll really go into the fall. Neither one of those players was healthy for the entire year last year, but when healthy, we were excited about what both players did. We're very pleased with the production we got at that position, but neither one was healthy for the year. Neither one's really 100% healthy right now. So that competition will move forward, and ultimately they're both going to play in the games, but they'll have to battle it out going into the fall to see who the starter will be. But I think that's the most important thing is to get all those players on the field at the same time. And for us, the best way to do it was to get Marcus over there at the R and to get Jamil over there at the E.
Kyle, what are your expectations for the redshirt freshman offensive linemen just as a group this spring, with most of them cracking the 2 deep?
My expectations for them are based more on effort than anything else. I don't put expectations on where I think they're going to be at the end of spring. I certainly think they'll be better than they were during bowl prep by the end of spring. I think that's fair to say. But guys like Chris Muller, J.J. Denman, Derek Nelson, they're a little bit ahead right now. But that's not to say that Brandon and Ryan aren't going to have opportunities this spring, because they are. And that's one of the great things about spring is regardless of where you are in the weight room, in bowl prep, spring practice is a clean slate. And you get to go out there every day and you get to battle and compete for your job. And where you start on the depth chart is really meaningless. It's just a matter of where you end at the end of spring, because that really is what gives you your springboard going into training camp.
What are you expecting from the 2013 recruits as they begin to come in and compete?
I'm expecting them to do exactly that. I'm expecting them to come in and compete. We thought we had a talented recruiting class that came in here. We were fortunate to be able to redshirt as many of them as we did. And now I'll give you a guy who's going to have a great opportunity. He's a guy like Davon Jacobs, who has really flashed some excellent stuff in practice on the scout team, in bowl prep, playing a little bit of Rutgers defense. But now he's got opportunity. Not only opportunity to start, but opportunity to be in the depth, opportunity to be in the sub packages. A guy like Desmond Peoples. We have one running back in our program who has legitimately carried the ball in Division I football games. A guy like Desmond Peoples is going to have a tremendous opportunity this spring to show where he fits.
Kyle, how do you balance keeping Dodd sharp as a backup with also developing the younger quarterbacks? Is that a tough juggling act?
To me, I think what Chase needs is opportunity. And I think every player that's not the starter going into spring is looking for that opportunity. I don't think any of them I would not want to limit him in that way. I want Chase to have opportunity. Now, with this team being a little bit younger, I will say this. We are going to practice a little bit longer than we did last year, because I think we do need the reps and reps take time. So I think we're going to have to take a little bit of time away from the meetings and put that time onto the field as we have the opportunity to do that, to make sure we have enough reps in practice to not only get Gary the number of reps he needs, but Chase the number of reps he needs, and then certainly guys like Blake Rankin, Mike Bamonte, Chris Laviano. We got to give them all an opportunity to show us what they have, so we can make sure going into fall training camp we've got the depth set the way we need it to.
What will the kicking competition look like, and is Federico fully healthy?
Kyle is fully healthy, and the kicking competition will look exactly like what you just said. It'll be Kyle and it'll be Nick, and both of those guys will be battling it out. And that is a position where we have two players that I think can go in and hit a winning kick for us. And at different times during the year, I was very pleased with the way both those players kicked. And now, having a little bit of the year to get healthy, they should both hit spring practice 100% healthy, and I think that'll be a good competition for both of them.
Kyle, two things. With Laro listed as a tight end, what did you see to make that move? And then the 5 offensive linemen that came in the 2012 class, what have you seen from them just physically if they've been around, and what kind of expectations do you have from them in the spring?
Again, I don't put expectations on the performance of the player. I put expectations on the effort. And if they're giving us the effort, I always feel like the performance eventually will get to where we want it to be. And those 5 offensive linemen are certainly 5 talented players. And now, for the first time, having redshirted all 5 of them, they're going to get opportunity this spring to show us that they can play Rutgers football in our system against really good competition on our defensive line. Tell me again what the first part was? Michael at tight end. What we see in Michael at tight end is an athletic player who is strong enough to block on the line of scrimmage. And that's what we're looking for. And I think that's where he can help this football team. So he has done that on a very minimal level, but what I've seen I've been pleased with. And I think Michael's excited about the change. And I think Michael's excited about the opportunity. And now it's just a matter of going out there every day and getting better at his skill set.
What have you seen from Chris Laviano so far?
Really nothing, because we're not allowed to. Chris has been working with the strength coaches, and we do some off-season workouts that we've been pleased with, but we haven't seen Chris throw a ball since he's been here at Rutgers. And tomorrow will be his first opportunity to do that. Now, we certainly recruited Chris because we thought he had a very talented arm, and he was the right person for our program. So I think as he learns our system and is trained by Coach Prince and Coach Spence, he'll develop into an excellent player. How fast that will happen, I don't know that. I can't predict that. But I'm anxious to see him out there tomorrow.
Kyle, how important does Darrell Wilson's job become with this new look secondary?
I think it becomes very important, but I think all those jobs are important during spring. I think we had better be building our base of fundamental football, our base of knowledge within our system here at Rutgers. And I think that's the one advantage these players have right now is for whatever time these players have been here, they've been able to play in a system. And I think every year you're able to do that, you have opportunities to get better. Coach Wilson is a very talented football coach, has adapted well in a short period of time to our system and how we play defense here. I think our younger secondary players are even less experienced, I'll say it that way, because a guy like Jeremy Deering is not necessarily a younger player. They will all benefit from his experience of coaching the back end on defense.
Kyle, do you anticipate an adjustment with the new coaches, or is that a lot of that ironed out during the winter program?
I don't know that it could all be ironed out during the winter program just because of the way the rules are set in college football. I think that there might be a little bit of an adjustment period because the voices are different, but I wouldn't expect that to take very long. I think these players on defense, they've known Coach Cohen for a year now, but now they're getting to know him in a different role as a coordinator, and that is a different role, and they're seeing a different side to Coach Cohen. But I worked with him for 3 years in that role, so that I knew exactly what we were going to get and how that was going to look on the field when we promoted him. But I think there's always a little bit of an adjustment period when the voices change. But again, with the system being intact, I think that will go a long way in helping.
Kyle, what kind of tweaks will we see philosophically with 2 new coordinators? Anything that we'll notice right away, or?
I don't know that it'll be anything that'll be very noticeable right away. I think what you will see as we go through the spring is you will see the better playmakers, probably more so on offense than defense, because I don't know that this would evolve as much on defense in a short period of time. But I think, by those last 2 weeks of spring, I think you're going to start to see the guys who emerge as the better playmakers, you're going to start to see the offense move in their direction. And I think all the really good offenses do that.
Hey, Kyle, are there specific things you'll do differently this spring based on your experience last spring as your first year as head coach?
The only thing specifically that we'll do differently that will feel different if you were here for every practice, but I don't know that you'd remember it, is we'll be out there a little bit longer. We'll go a little bit longer. We'll have a few more reps in practice. It won't be overly significant, but it'll be enough to make sure that these red-shirted players and these newcomers who just got here in January, that they have an opportunity to show us what they can do. Because if there's a freshman in this program that can help us be a better football team, we need to be able to see that, and we need to be able to find a role for them going forward into the fall.
Kyle, last year when Dave Brock took over the offense, same terminology and everything. Is Coach Prince doing the same terminology or his own, and how much of an impact is that?
No, it is. It's all the same terminology. And again, I think that creates a comfort level with the players on offense. It's with having 5 coordinators in 5 years, it's not something that you ever plan to do it that way. But I think over the last 3 seasons, having that terminology in place is only going to help us going forward.
Which recruits are you looking to make an impact right away from the first day of practice?
I don't try to predetermine that. I think that is something that they will determine more than I will. I think what we have to do is make sure we give them all opportunity. And if the younger players in our program, whether they were recruited in the last class or the class before that, and they've just redshirted and then maybe been on the scout team for a year, you don't know what the pace of somebody's progress is going to be. There are certain players who come in here, like Ray Rice, and they win the job the 5th day of training camp. That happens. And then there's other players like Kevin Haslam who don't really start a game until maybe halfway through his 3rd year and is not a full-time starter until his 4th year, but both end up playing in the NFL. Both end up helping us win a lot of games here at Rutgers. I don't know that you can predetermine that. I don't know that you'd ever want to try to even guess at it. I think what you have to do is give them opportunity on the practice field. And then as you do that, those position battles and those depth charts, they'll sort themselves out.
Kyle, with Quanzel and Nick DePaula as middle linebackers trying to replace Steve, what are you kind of looking for at that position with Steve obviously being a 3.5-year starter?
I think the first thing you better have as a middle linebacker is you better be a great communicator. One of the things Steve did for us was make sure everybody was on the same page out there. It's a very undervalued thing, I think, by the casual observer of football. That ability to communicate within the chaos of a football game and to do it in a very short amount of time, that it's not easy to replace. So whoever it is, that'll be the first thing I'll look for. And then from there, I want to see him play the defense. We don't need any superheroes out there. You don't replace Steve Baharnish. You don't replace Kasim Green. There are people who play those positions, and they have to play them within the defense. And if they do that, we'll play good defense because we've played good defense at Rutgers for a long time with a lot of different people.
Kyle, from your experience, is spring camp the time when you expect your leadership to emerge?
You hope it does. Again, it's not something that you can force as a coach. We have some tremendous leaders. We've got one of the best leaders on our football team is Brandon Coleman. And he will have to now lead from the sideline. And I know he will do that. But certainly at every position, there's got to be leadership. And then certainly on each side of the ball, you need to have that as well. And spring is certainly a time where that'll happen.
Kyle, with all the youth or inexperience in the secondary, what's your take on it going into the spring and kind of some of the things you want to see out of the secondary?
I just want to see them get experience playing our defense. I think we certainly have some inexperience, but T.J. Johnson, Grief Glashan, they've played a lot of football. It just hasn't necessarily been in the games. So their inexperience in the games is not going to get rectified this spring because we don't have any games this spring. Lorenzo has certainly played a lot. He has a lot of experience for us. Jeremy does not. So we have some moving parts there, and then we've got some other guys behind them that are going to get opportunity. So really, what I want to see them do this spring is just play within the system. That's the most important thing to me. We don't need anybody out there with their own agenda. Those kind of players don't work at Rutgers. If they play within the system, there'll be opportunities to make plays, and then they have to make them.
Kyle, where in your mind does Gary Nova need to make the biggest improvement, the greatest strides?
I think consistency of play is the most important thing at that position. And maybe you could say it about every position, but I think at the quarterback position especially, the biggest jump I'd like to see Gary make from last year to this year would be to still have the highs and the great moments that we had, but maybe some of the other games where he wasn't pleased with his performance, if we can move them up, then you have a more consistent, a higher level of play, and then you play a better brand of winning football on offense. I think no matter what the offense is, there's always going to be more emphasis placed on that position. Quality of play at the quarterback position is crucial to play good offense. And if we could avoid the lows and keep the highs, we got a chance to be better.
Got time for 2 more questions. Ian Thomas and what you see that you want to keep him on defense.
Ian Thomas was a move from offense to defense that we made during bowl prep last year at the urging of Logan Ryan. And I was standing next to Logan in practice one day, and Ian was covering one of the flyers on punt. And Logan said to me, "Coach, you should try this guy at corner." I said, "Really?" He said, "Absolutely." I said, "Okay." I said, "You should tell him that and see if he wants to do it." He said, "I already did. He wants to do it." I said, "Okay, not a problem." So we tried him there, and we were really pleased. And he's got great feet. He had a willingness to tackle right away, which is one of the first things we have to look for from our corners, because our corners are primary support quite a bit. So if you don't want to tackle, it's hard to play corner at Rutgers. And in the first scrimmage he was in, he actually made 3 tackles. And I was very pleased with what I saw. He was excited about the position change, and he sees opportunity there for sure, which is part of the reason why he's probably so excited about it. But he's a guy this spring that's going to have, again, spring is a time for everybody when it comes to the word opportunity. He has maybe a unique opportunity because of the amount of players that we have to replace in that secondary.
Like Michael Burton, assuming he's healthy, what kind of benefit can he be to your running game?
Michael is another one of those players that would go into the leadership category, and that's in everything that he does. And he had the lead, unfortunately for us, being injured for the latter part of the season from the sideline. But Michael is a player who he makes us a better football team when he's out there. And we run the ball better when Michael Burton is in the game and we're in a 21 or a regular personnel group. So to have him back this spring is certainly a bonus to the entire offense. Now, with that said, one of the things that we better figure out and we better find is where is the depth going to come from at that position. And I've said that before, but that'll be one of the key position battles this spring, is to find out where that depth is going to come from at the fullback position. Because if you don't have it, when a guy like Michael Burton is not in the game, you end up being in different personnel groups, and that's not always what you want to do. Thanks, Coach. Thank you.